The golden child and the ghost who paid the bills. I never thought that a simple family dinner would be the last time I'd see my mother's face. That evening, I drove to my parents' house, with my usual cargo of dread sitting heavy in my chest, the kind that had become so familiar I'd almost stopped noticing it. Almost. The November rain hammered against my windshield as I pulled into the driveway of the modest two-story colonial I'd been financially propping up for the past 6 years. I sat there for a moment, engine running, watching the warm light spill from the windows onto the wet pavement. Inside, my family was gathering for what my mother had called a proper Thanksgiving planning dinner. I didn't know then that this house, this monument to my silent sacrifice, would become a place I'd never enter again. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a person becomes invisible while simultaneously holding everything together. Let me tell you about the slow erosion of self that happens when you're valued only for what you provide, never for who you are. It started 6 years ago, though the roots go back much further than that. My father had a stroke, not a massive one, but enough to leave him partially paralyzed on his left side, enough to end his career as a contractor, enough to drain their savings within 18 months. I was 32 then, working as a senior financial analyst at a mid-sized firm, finally starting to build something for myself. I had just put a down payment on a condo. I was dating someone seriously for the first time in years. I had plans. But when your father can't work and your mother calls you crying because they're going to lose the house, what do? You step up. That's what you do. My sister, Melissa, golden, perfect Melissa, lived in California with her software engineer husband and their 2 photogenic children. She sent a fruit basket to the hospital. She made sympathetic noises during our family video calls. She posted on Facebook about how hard it was to be so far away during a family crisis, collecting sympathy likes by the hundreds. She did not send money. I, on the other hand, started with the mortgage. Just temporarily, I told myself, just until Dad got back on his feet, until they could sort out the disability payments and figure things out. $1,500 a month. I could swing it for a few months. Then came the medical bills that insurance wouldn't cover. Physical therapy 3 times a week at $90 per session, medications that cost more than groceries, a wheelchair-accessible shower installation because Dad couldn't safely use the tub anymore. I canceled the purchase of my condo, lost the down payment, ended the relationship because I couldn't explain why I suddenly had no money for dates, no energy for someone else's emotional needs when I was drowning in my family's demands. But it was temporary. Just temporary. That first year, I became a different person. I stopped buying coffee out, stopped getting my hair done professionally, started buying generic everything, meal prepping on Sundays to stretch my grocery budget, wearing the same rotation of work clothes until the hems frayed and the collars wore thin. I learned to lie smoothly when coworkers suggested happy hour. So tired tonight, I'd say with a practiced laugh, when the truth was I had exactly $43 to last until Friday, and my mother had called that morning about the heating bill. My parents' gratitude lasted about 4 months. After that, it became expected. The mortgage payment I made wasn't help anymore, it was just what I did, like breathing, showing up. The financial support became invisible, taken for granted, while every visit turned into a recitation of my failures in other areas. "You're 33 and still renting?" my mother would say, forgetting, or choosing to forget, that I'd lost my condo to save their house. "When are you going to find someone? Melissa was married by 27. You've put on weight. You should take care of yourself. Men don't like women who let themselves go." Every criticism delivered with a smile, with a tone that suggested she was just being helpful, just caring about me. And when I'd sit at their dinner table, eating the food I'd bought with my grocery money, listening to my mother talk, she'd inevitably circle back to Melissa. Perfect Melissa. Successful Melissa. Melissa who'd married well, who had beautiful children, who sent the most thoughtful Christmas cards with professional family photos, everyone in coordinated outfits against artfully neutral backgrounds. Never mind that Melissa hadn't contributed a single dollar to our parents' survival. Never mind that she video called maybe twice a month and visited once a year, staying in a hotel because the kids need their routine. Never mind any of that. She sent Christmas cards. Apparently, that counted for more than $200,000. Yes, you read that right. $200,000. I calculated it once during a bout of insomnia at 3 in the morning, sitting at my kitchen table with a spreadsheet and 6 years of bank statements. I don't know what possessed me to do it. Maybe I needed to see the number to believe it myself. Maybe I needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that my resentment wasn't unfounded. Mortgage payments, $72,000. Medical bills and prescriptions, $48,000. Home repairs and modifications, $31,000. Credit card debt I'd paid off for them, $26,000. Debt accrued before Dad's stroke, but that they could no longer service. Property taxes twice when they couldn't cover it, $11,000. Utilities, groceries, incidental expenses, another $12,000 conservatively. $200,000, give or take. I stared at that number until my eyes burned. $200,000. And I was still the disappointment, still the loser, still the one who hadn't amounted to anything. I closed the laptop, went to work the next day, made the next mortgage payment on schedule. Because what else do you do? The thing about being taken for granted is that it happens so gradually you don't realize you're disappearing. First, your sacrifices go unacknowledged. Then they go unnoticed. Finally, they become invisible entirely, while somehow, simultaneously, any small failure on your part becomes magnified, discussed, picked apart. I missed one mortgage payment, one in 6 years, because my car needed an emergency transmission repair, and I had to choose between being able to get to work and making the payment exactly on time. I paid it a week late with an apologetic call to my parents to explain. My mother didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. When she finally did, it was to tell me how stressed I'd made them, how irresponsible I was, how she'd had to lie awake at night worrying about foreclosure. No mention of the 71 other payments I'd made flawlessly. Meanwhile, Melissa called the same week to tell everyone that her daughter had been accepted into a prestigious private kindergarten. My mother spent 45 minutes on the phone with her, cooing over the news, then immediately called me to ask why I couldn't be more like my sister, why I couldn't give her grandchildren to be proud of. I was paying for her house. Melissa was paying for private kindergarten. Somehow, I was still the failure. You're probably wondering why I didn't just stop, why I didn't cut them off, walk away, let them face the natural consequences of their situation. I've asked myself that question 10,000 times. The truth is complicated. Part of it was guilt, the belief that you don't abandon your parents when they're struggling, that family takes care of family. Part of it was fear that if I stopped, the house would be lost and it would be my fault. Part of it was the hope, foolish and persistent, that eventually they'd see me, really see me, recognize what I'd done, who I'd been for them. Part of it, if I'm brutally honest, was that being needed, even in this twisted, unappreciated way, felt better than being nothing at all. I had lost so much of myself in those 6 years. The condo, the relationship, my savings, my social life, my hobbies. I'd winnowed my existence down to work and obligation. And somewhere in that narrowing, I'd forgotten who I was outside of the person who fixed things, who paid for things, who made everything possible for everyone else while my own life withered. The money was just money. The real cost was measured in different currency. Dreams deferred, confidence eroded, self-worth reduced to nothing. When you're constantly told you're not enough while giving everything, you start to believe it. That brings us to the dinner. Thanksgiving planning, my mother had said. Just family. Melissa would be calling in via video since she couldn't make it out. Surprise, surprise. But we could all be together, make decisions about the holiday. I almost didn't go. I was tired, bone tired, soul tired, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. But I went because I always went, because I was the reliable one, because it was easier than dealing with the guilt trip that would follow if I didn't. The house smelled like my mother's pot roast when I arrived, shaking rain from my jacket. My father was in his chair in the living room, watching a game with the volume too loud. He gave me a small wave but didn't get up. His mobility had improved over the years, but he still moved carefully, still tired easily. "You're late," my mother called from the kitchen. I was 4 minutes late. There'd been an accident on the highway. "Sorry," I said automatically. The word so practiced it required no thought. "Traffic," she sniffed. "Melissa's been waiting on the call for 10 minutes. You know how busy she is." Of course. Melissa's time was precious. Mine was apparently infinite. I joined my mother in the kitchen where she was fussing over the roast. She looked older lately, more tired. For a moment, I felt the familiar tug of sympathy, the reminder that she'd been through a lot too, that caring for my father had aged her. Then she turned to me with that expression, the one I'd learned to dread, and the sympathy evaporated. "You look exhausted. Are you not sleeping? You need to take better care of yourself. No wonder you can't find anyone. Men don't want someone who looks worn out all the time." I bit back the response that rose immediately. "I look worn out because I work 50 hours a week and spend every spare moment worrying about your finances." Instead, I said, "I'm fine, Mom, just been busy at work." "Well, set the table, would you? And use the nice placemats. I want everything to look nice for when Melissa calls." Everything for Melissa. Always for Melissa. Dinner started pleasantly enough, as these things go. We sat down, me, my parents, and my mother's iPad, propped on a stand, so Melissa could join us from her kitchen, 3,000 miles away. She looked perfect, as always. Blown out hair, subtle makeup, a designer sweater, in a shade of cream that would last approximately 30 seconds in my life before getting stained. "Hi, everyone." She sang out, her voice bright and cheerful. "God, I miss you all. I wish we could be there." "We miss you too, sweetheart," she cooed. "Tell us everything. How are the kids? How's Daniel's new project going?" While Melissa launched into a detailed account of her picture-perfect life, I ate my pot roast I'd bought, I might add, having dropped off groceries 3 days earlier, and felt myself fading into the background. This was normal. This was every family gathering. Melissa starred, I orbited. "And so we're thinking of renovating the kitchen. It's a huge project, but Daniel got his bonus, so we figured why not? The countertops are so dated." "How exciting!" my mother gushed. "I love following those home renovation shows. You'll have to send pictures." I thought about the water heater I'd replaced here last month, the one that had cost $3,000 and had required me to put off getting new tires for another 2 months. Nobody had asked for pictures of that. "Now, Thanksgiving," my mother said, shifting topics. "Melissa, I know you're not coming, but I thought we'd plan anyway. The Andersons are joining us, and possibly your Aunt Carol. We'll need to figure out who's bringing what." "I can make the sweet potato casserole," I offered. My mother waved a hand dismissively. "You always bring that. Can't you do something more interesting? Melissa, when you hosted last year, what was that amazing Brussels sprout thing you made?" I hadn't hosted Thanksgiving in 6 years. There was never any question of hosting. My apartment was small, and besides, Mom wanted it at the house I paid for. "Oh, that was so easy," Melissa said. "I'll send you the recipe, Mom. It's from this chef I follow on Instagram." Of course it was. The conversation continued like this, meandering through holiday planning, Melissa's children's various achievements, my mother's commentary on neighbors I barely remembered. I was present, but invisible.
contributing when directly asked, but otherwise fading into the furniture. Then my father, who'd been mostly quiet, said something that should have been kind. "We're lucky to have both our girls, even if they're far apart." My mother made a noise that wasn't quite agreement. "Well," she said, and I knew that tone, knew what was coming, felt myself tense preemptively. "We're lucky to have Melissa's success. At least one of our daughters made something of herself." The words hung in the air. On the screen, Melissa's eyes went wide for just a moment before she pasted on an uncomfortable smile. My father shifted in his chair, and I sat there, fork frozen halfway to my mouth, feeling something crack inside my chest. "Mom?" I said quietly. "What do you mean by that?" She blinked at me, innocent as anything. "What? I'm just saying Melissa's done well for herself. Good marriage, beautiful children, beautiful home. It's nice to have something to be proud of." "In me?" I asked. The words came out steadier than I felt. "What am I?" "Oh, don't be so sensitive." She waved her hand again, that dismissive gesture I'd seen 1,000 times. "I know I love you. I just wish you'd applied yourself more."
You're almost 40, 38, and you're still renting some tiny apartment. No husband, no children, nothing to show for yourself. It's embarrassing when people ask me about my daughters. Melissa gives me something to brag about. You, she shrugged. What am I supposed to say about you? The crack widened. Something cold and bright filled the space. Maybe, I said slowly, you could mention that I've been paying your mortgage for 6 years. My mother laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, here we go. Yes, you help out. We're grateful. But let's not pretend you're some kind of hero. Plenty of children help their parents. It's what you're supposed to do. Help out? I repeated. The cold, bright thing was spreading now, filling my limbs, my lungs. It felt almost like freedom, almost like rage. Is that what you call it? Honestly, this is why you're so difficult to talk to. Always so defensive, always making everything about you. She turned to the iPad, to Melissa's frozen face on the screen. Your sister never acts this way. That's when it happened. That's when something in me that had been bending for 6 years finally snapped clean through. You're right, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Calm, almost detached. Melissa never acts this way. Because Melissa has never paid for anything in this house. Not one single thing. That's not fair, she started. She lives far away. She has her own family too. I paid your mortgage, I said, speaking over her, every month for 6 years, $72,000. We never asked you to. I paid for Dad's physical therapy, his medications, the wheelchair shower, the hospital bills insurance wouldn't cover, $48,000. My mother's face was reddening. We would have figured something out. I paid for the new roof, the water heater, the HVAC repair, the property taxes, $31,000. Lower your voice right now. I paid off your credit cards, $26,000 of debt that you'd racked up before Dad even got sick. My father was staring at me now, his mouth slightly open. On the screen, Melissa had gone pale. $200,000, I said, and my voice wasn't calm anymore. It was shaking. 6 years of silence finally breaking open. $200,000 I've given you, and you just called me an embarrassment, a loser with nothing to show for herself. How dare you, my mother hissed. How dare you throw money in our faces like this? We're your parents. You're supposed to take care of us. And what have you given me? I asked. The question came out quieter than the rest, and somehow that made it worse. In 6 years, what have you given me besides criticism, besides comparisons to Melissa, besides being made to feel like I'm never enough? Everything I do is worthless. This is emotional manipulation, my mother snapped. This is you trying to make us feel guilty for not praising you enough.
We never ask you to keep track like some kind of accountant. And who paid all your bills all this time? The question came out simple, direct, undeniable. My mother's mouth opened, closed, opened again. We, you're being... I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. I'm done, I said. Done with what? My mother's voice had gone high and tight. Done with dinner? Fine. Go home and pout like you always do when someone tells you the truth. Done with all of it, I said. Done paying your mortgage, done covering your bills, done being invisible while Melissa gets praised for Christmas cards, done being the family failure while I'm the only one keeping this house standing. You ungrateful. Ungrateful? The laugh that came out of me sounded broken. You're calling me ungrateful? Do you have any idea what I've given up? I lost a condo. I lost relationships. I've spent 6 years with no savings, no life, no future because every spare dollar went here, to you. And you can't even acknowledge it? You can't even see me? If you're going to be this way, my mother said, her voice ice, then maybe you're right. Maybe you should leave. So I did. I walked out of that house, past my father who was calling my name, past the iPad where Melissa was saying, wait, let's all just come down. I got in my car and I drove away. And I never went back. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most were from my mother. You need to apologize immediately. How could you embarrass us like that in front of your sister? Your father is very upset. This is incredibly immature. The mortgage is due on the 15th. That last one made me laugh. Made me laugh until I cried, sitting on my couch in my tiny apartment. The apartment I'd been apologizing for while paying for their house. A few messages were from Melissa. Can we talk? I didn't know it was that much. Mom's really upset. Please call me. One was from my father. Your mother is hurt. She loves you. We love you. Let's talk this through. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called my bank and canceled the automatic transfer for the mortgage payment. Then I sat with my laptop and started making calculations, different calculations this time. Not what I'd spent, but what I could do now. Now that I was keeping my paycheck. Now that I was done setting myself on fire to keep other people warm. The calls kept coming. The texts got more desperate, then angry, then desperate again. I didn't answer. 3 days later, Melissa showed up at my apartment. I almost didn't let her in, but curiosity got the better of me. Or maybe it was the old habit of being accommodating, of opening doors even when I wanted them closed. She looked tired, less polished than usual. She stood in my doorway with her hands twisted together and said, "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. We sat in my living room, this awkward silence stretching between us. Finally, she said, "I didn't know. About the money, about how much you'd been paying." "I know," I said, and I did know. Melissa had been genuinely oblivious, wrapped up in her own life 3,000 miles away. The golden child never has to look too closely at the scapegoat's sacrifices. Mom said you were helping out, but I thought she meant a few $100s here and there. I didn't know you'd paid. She stopped. $200,000? Give or take. Jesus! She ran her hands through her perfect hair, messing it up. I should have known. I should have asked. I should have helped, I said simply. She flinched. You're right. I should have. I thought they were fine. Mom never said they were struggling. She never asked me for anything. She never had to ask you because she had me. Melissa was quiet for a long moment. Then, she called you an embarrassment. She said you had nothing to show for yourself. She did. Well, you were paying for everything? Melissa's voice cracked. God, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. For all of it. For not helping, for not seeing, for being the one she stopped. started again. I didn't ask to be the golden child, but I didn't stop it either. I let you carry everything while I got all the praise. Yes, I said. You did. We sat with that truth between us. What are you going to do? She asked finally. About Mom and Dad? Nothing, I said. I'm done. They can figure it out themselves. Sell the house, get a smaller place, apply for assistance. I don't know, and I don't care anymore. That's harsh. Is it? Was it harsh when Mom called me a loser? When she said I was embarrassing? When she took my money every month and acted like it was worthless? Was that harsh, Melissa? She looked away. No, you're right. They're going to lose the house.
Probably. Dad's sick. I know. And you're really just going to let them? Yes. The word came out firm. Final. I'm going to let them face the consequences of treating me like garbage while I kept them afloat. I'm going to let them figure out how to survive without me. And I'm going to start building the life I should have had 6 years ago. Melissa nodded slowly. Okay. She stood up. For what it's worth, I'm going to help them now. Daniel and I talked about it. We're going to send money. Not as much as you are giving. We can't afford that. But something. And I'm going to tell Mom that what she said was unforgivable. I didn't thank her. It was 6 years too late for gratitude. After she left, I sat in my apartment and felt the weight of obligation slowly lifting off my shoulders. It was terrifying. It was liberating. It was both at once. That was 3 months ago. In those 3 months, I've saved more money than I have in years. I've started therapy, real therapy, with a psychologist who specializes in family trauma and codependency. I've been on 3 dates. I've taken a weekend trip to the beach just because I wanted to. I've bought new clothes, got my hair done, started yoga classes. I've also blocked my mother's number. That was the hardest part, if I'm honest. Even after everything, even knowing intellectually that I'd done the right thing, there was still that pull of guilt, that voice saying I was abandoning them, that I was being cruel. But my therapist asked me a question that changed everything. If a friend came to you and told you this story, that they'd given $200,000 to their parents and still gotten called a loser, what would you tell them? I would tell them to run. I would tell them they were being used. I would tell them their parents were abusive and ungrateful and that no amount of money would ever be enough. Enough. Because the problem wasn't money. It was that their parents fundamentally didn't value them. I would tell them what I'm telling you now. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep others warm. And you cannot earn love from people who've decided you're not worth loving. My parents lost their house. Melissa sent me a long email about it, about how they'd moved into a small apartment, how Dad was adjusting, how Mom was devastated. She didn't ask me to help. She just thought I should know. I felt sad when I read it, but I didn't feel guilty. The guilt is fading, slowly. Some days it surges back, usually when I see something that reminds me of them, or when I calculate how much money I have now and realize what a difference it would have made in their lives. But then I remember. I remember being called a loser. I remember 6 years of invisibility. I remember $200,000 given and zero recognition received. And I remember that I deserve better. I don't know how this story ends. I'm still living it, still figuring out who I am when I'm not defined by obligation and sacrifice. Still learning to spend money on myself without guilt. Still learning that my worth isn't measured in what I provide for others. But I know this. I'm not going back. Some people will say I'm cruel, that I abandoned my parents when they needed me, that blood is thicker than water, that you're supposed to honor your mother and father, that children should care for their aging parents. Those people didn't pay $200,000 to be called an embarrassment. Those people didn't disappear while propping everyone else up. Those people don't know what it's like to give everything and still be nothing. I do, and I'm done. This is my truth, raw and messy. I chose myself.
Finally, after 6 years of choosing everyone else, I chose myself. It hurt. It still hurts. But it's the good kind of hurt, the growing kind, the kind that comes from setting a broken bone back in place so it can finally heal properly. I'm healing. I'm building a life. I'm learning that I'm worth more than the checks I write. And if that makes me the villain in my family story, so be it. I'd rather be the villain in their story than disappear in my own. The golden child gets the glory. The scapegoat gets the blame. And the ghost who paid all the bills, she finally gets her life back. This is mine. I'm keeping it.